The Hotel Grandview stood tall, a sentinel of time. Its presence was more than just a building. It was a living, breathing entity that had witnessed the ebb and flow of human history. Its brick facade, weathered and worn, told stories of resilience and endurance. Each crack and crevice held memories of days gone by, of moments both grand and mundane. A testament to countless storms, both literal and metaphorical. The Grandview had weathered them all, standing firm against the ravages of time and nature. Built in 1902, it had seen it all. Prosperity, depression, war, peace, each era left its mark, shaping the hotel into a mosaic of history and culture. Through it all, the Grandview stood, a beacon of continuity in a world of change. Its halls echoed with the footsteps of those who had come and gone, a silent observer of human drama. The walls had ears and they had heard it all, the whispers of secrets, the cries of joy and the sobs of sorrow. Generations of travelers had passed through its grand doors, some seeking solace, others adventure. Each guest added a new chapter to the Grandview's ever-growing story, all leaving their mark on the hotel's soul. The guest book was a testament to the myriad lives that had intersected within its walls. The Grandview absorbed their stories, their laughter and tears, their hopes and fears. It became a living archive of human experience, a repository of countless memories. It became a repository of human experience, a place where the past and present coexisted, where every corner held a story waiting to be told. But some stories, it seemed, refused to leave. They lingered in the shadows, haunting the halls and rooms with their unresolved endings. They clung to the Grandview's shadows, whispers of the past that refused to be silenced, echoing through the corridors, whispered in the dead of night. The ticking of an old clock, the creak of floorboards, all seemed to carry the weight of these lingering tales. One such story was about room 306, a room shrouded in mystery where the past and present seemed to blur and the line between reality and legend was often crossed. Room 306 was different, set at the end of a long, dimly lit corridor. It always felt colder, more silent than the other rooms. Housekeeping staff spoke of strange chills, whispers seeming to emanate from the walls. Some refused to clean it alone. The room itself was ordinary, a double bed, a writing desk, 2 chairs, a faded floral wallpaper. Yet an unsettling aura permeated the air, an invisible weight that settled upon anyone who dared to enter. For the past 20 years, room 306 had only one permanent resident, a man known only as Mr. Smith. He paid his rent in cash, always on time, never complained, never left. Mr. Smith was an enigma, a man whose very presence seemed to be a puzzle wrapped in a mystery. A recluse shrouded in mystery, he lived a life that was as shadowy as the dimly lit room he inhabited. He was tall and gaunt, his frame almost skeletal, as if he had been carved out of the very shadows that surrounded him. His face a roadmap of wrinkles, each line telling a story of a life lived in solitude and silence. Eyes that seemed to hold 1,000 untold stories, glimmering with secrets that would never be shared. He always wore the same attire, a uniform that became his second skin. A dark suit, a white shirt, a black tie. This ensemble was as much a part of him as his own shadow. He never spoke to anyone, his silence as impenetrable as the darkness that enveloped him, except for a curt nod to the staff, a gesture that was more mechanical than human. He received no visitors, no phone calls, no mail. His existence was a void, untouched by the outside world. He was a ghost in human form, drifting through life without leaving a trace, existing solely within the confines of room 306, a space that became his entire world. His days followed a strict routine, a monotonous cycle that never deviated. Every morning at precisely 8 o'clock he would leave his room, his movements as predictable as clockwork. Always dressed in his usual attire, he was a figure of unwavering consistency. He would walk to the lobby, purchase a newspaper, and then disappear back into his room, then return to his room, the newspaper his only connection to the world outside. He would not emerge again until the following morning, a phantom in a perpetual cycle of solitude. Stories about Mr. Smith were common among the hotel's staff. He was a man shrouded in mystery, a guest who had checked in years ago and never left. His presence was almost ghostly, and the tales about him grew more elaborate with each passing year. Whispered tales passed down from one employee to the next, New hires were quickly brought up to speed on the legend of Mr. Smith, and soon they too would add their own experiences to the growing collection of eerie anecdotes. Some said he was a retired spy, living out his days in quiet solitude. Others believed he was a heartbroken widower, forever mourning the loss of his beloved wife. His demeanor was always calm, yet there was an air of sadness that seemed to follow him. A few even whispered of a dark past. Rumors circulated that he was hiding from something or someone. The more imaginative staff members speculated about a crime he might have committed, a secret he was desperately trying to keep hidden, a crime he was hiding from. Theories ranged from espionage to a tragic accident, but no one knew for sure. The only certainty was that Mr. Smith was not an ordinary guest. Housekeeping staff swore they saw objects move on their own in room 306. Lights flickered inexplicably. Some even claimed to have felt a cold breeze pass by, despite the windows being firmly shut. Sounds of muffled sobs echoed from the room at night. The cries were soft but unmistakable, sending chills down the spines of those who heard them. It was as if the room itself was mourning. But when they checked, Mr. Smith would be sound asleep, his breathing steady, his face serene. It was hard to believe that such unsettling noises could come from a man who appeared so peaceful, his face an emotionless mask. He rarely spoke, and when he did, his words were measured and deliberate. It was as if he was always guarding a secret, one that he would take to his grave. Maintenance workers claimed the plumbing in room 306 was always acting up. Pipes rattled. The sounds were loud enough to wake the dead, yet Mr. Smith never seemed to notice. Water ran cold for no reason. Faucets would turn on by themselves, and no amount of repairs seemed to fix the issue. It was as if the room had a life of its own. The thermostat seemed to have a mind of its own. Temperatures fluctuated wildly, from freezing cold to stifling heat, often within the span of a few minutes. It was a mystery that baffled even the most experienced technicians. Yet they could never find a logical explanation for these occurrences. The legend of Mr. Smith and room 306 continued to grow, a tale of the unexplained that would be passed down for generations to come. Guests staying in rooms adjacent to 306 often complained. They reported feeling uneasy, a sense of being watched. Some claimed to have seen a shadowy figure lurking in the hallway, always disappearing into room 306. One guest, a young woman traveling alone, swore she saw a ghostly apparition, a woman in a white dress standing by the window in room 306. She claimed the woman turned to her, her face contorted in anguish, then vanished into thin air. These stories only added to the mystique surrounding room 306 and its enigmatic occupant. At 306, the night of the storm. When silence screamed, one night a fierce storm raged outside. Rain lashed against the windows. Wind howled through the eaves. The power flickered, plunging the hotel into darkness. It was on this night that something strange happened, something that shook even the most skeptical staff to their core. A blood-curdling scream pierced the night, coming from room 306. The night manager, a burly man named Frank, rushed to investigate. He banged on the door, no answer. He tried the handle, locked. He called for backup. Together they broke down the door. The room was empty. Section 7, The Disappearance, a vanishing act in broad daylight. Mr. Smith was gone, vanished without a trace. His belongings were untouched. Bed neatly made, newspaper lying on the nightstand. The only sign that he had ever been there was the lingering scent of his pipe tobacco. The police were called. They searched the hotel and surrounding area, but found no sign of Mr. Smith. No witnesses, no leads. It was as if he had simply ceased to exist. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, months into years, still no sign of Mr. Smith. The mystery of his disappearance remained unsolved. Section 8. The room remains, haunted by whispers and shadows. Room 306 remained vacant for years. No one dared to stay there, not after what had happened. The staff avoided it. Guests requested other rooms. The air inside felt heavy, oppressive, as if the room itself was holding its breath. Eventually, the hotel management decided to seal the room. They boarded up the door, painted over it, but the stories persisted, whispered among the staff, shared with new employees. A chilling reminder of the man who never left, and then vanished without a trace. A Section 9, The Unsolved Mystery, A Legacy of Intrigue. To this day, the mystery of Mr. Smith remains unsolved. Who was he? Why did he never leave his room? And what happened to him that stormy night? Some say Mr. Smith was a ghost all along, trapped within the walls of the Grandview. Others believe he was running from something or someone. A few even whisper that he discovered a portal, a gateway to another dimension. Whatever the truth may be, one thing is certain. The legacy of the man who never left room 306 continues to haunt the halls